show. Find everything Marc Cox at 971talk.com/Cox.
You know, I've said that there's a new political order that's being formed out of this, and it's still being formed. But if you look at the wide degree of opinions in this room, whether you're a populist, whether you're a limited government conservative, whether you're a libertarian, whether you're an economic nationalist, we have wide and sometimes divergent opinions. But I think the center core of what we believe, that we're a nation with an economy, not an economy just in some global marketplace with open borders, but we are a nation with a culture and a reason for being. And I think that's what unites us. And I think that is what's going to unite this movement going forward.
Steve Bannon speaking today at CPAC, along with Reince Priebus. Kellyanne Conway's been there. I saw Sheriff David Clark up on the stage a little earlier. Our guest right now is Jerry Rogers. Jerry's vice president at the Institute for Liberty. He's at CPAC right now. Jerry, how are you?
I am good. I'm with my freedom-loving, liberty-advancing friends and colleagues and fellow travelers.
I bet you do. So you're there in Maryland. What's the best speech you've heard so far?
Well, mine was really good. I gave a speech on cronyism, which was excellent. You know what? Ted Cruz gave a great speech. I know that Betsy DeVos gave a great speech. I tell you what, regardless of where you were before this election, we have to be pleased with the appointments and the people surrounding the president, even if we don't agree with the president on every issue.
Yeah, I would agree with that. When I see some of the comments from people like George Will, who've become
George Will is so last century, man. Come on.
I know.
George Will's a good guy, and but you know what? Sometimes we get stuck, and even our ideas on the economy, we get stuck. We have a certain position, and we stick to it, and we don't want to take new positions. And I think Trump's going to challenge that. And I'm looking forward to it. I tell you the truth. One thing that I'm concerned about, if you don't mind me.
No, please.
You know, look, we've had 8 years of slow growth, no growth. The new normal is, no growth per year. And, since the 1970s, it's been startup firms, all net new job growth, startup firms. And the one thing that I'm going to sound so parochial, so DC centered, but one of the things that concerns me about the president, and again, thus far, I like what Mr. Trump is doing, but he wants to target that carry interest tax. He wants to tax investors. He talked about it on the campaign. He agreed with Hillary Clinton about it, and now that he's in power, there's a lot of talk in Republican circles about this carried interest, and I'm worried about it because after 8 years of no growth, I don't think we should be taxing those who invest and those who innovate. So anyway, that's one of the issues here that we're talking about a lot. Yeah,
I'm sure you are, and there's also the talk of adding tariffs at the border on some products, and that's a tax on consumers too.
I did a show earlier today, and my head begins to spin because some of these issues are so inside baseball, right?
Right. Yeah.
The thing, though, one thing that we talked about. I'm a Reagan conservative. I grew up in New York in the '80s and went to school in the late '80s and early '90s, and Republicans were always about dynamic scoring, dynamic economy, and the Democrats were Keynesians. They were the ones who wanted to pay for everything. And so, again, when we go into tax reform, we need tax reform, corporate tax reform, individual rate tax reform. And I think what's going to be a stumbling block here is this idea of targeting investors, going after the Wall Street types, and even Republicans are talking about this, and they talk about pay for it. If we're going to have a corporate tax break, we need to pay for it somehow. And Republicans are forgetting the money doesn't belong to the government. The money belongs to the investors. The money belongs to you and me. And anyway, so that's at CPAC. That's kind of one of the issues where we're seeing some tension, where there are those who want tax reform, but they want to pay for it somehow, and others like me who don't think we should have to, pay, excuse ourselves to the government for wanting to keep our own money.
Yeah, I would agree, and I'm a little discouraged that Congress, with a majority in both houses, and now the president hasn't moved on tax reform. I know they've been busy, but I was kind of hoping they'd move on that as one of their priority items.
You know, it's funny that you say that because we were talking about this just earlier today. It's been, 32 days, and I think there's been some action and some remarkable quick action on some issues. However, you're right on the repeal or replace Obamacare, and on tax reform. There's a pause or a seeming pause. I think on Obamacare, it's because they want to get it right. And, you know, Obamacare literally was written on the back of napkins, crying out loud. You know, lobbyists and Democratic senators in back rooms on the Senate floor and off the Senate floor writing parts of the bill on ridiculous on napkins. So I like that they want to get health care right. On tax reform, though, again, not to be too in the weeds, it's this carried interest issue. What they want to do is they want to tax carried interest. And the problem with that is that this is money that's already earned after taxes, and it targets those who invest. And I don't see how we're going to have a growing economy if we're going to tax those who invest in the economy. Yeah,
that's a great point. And one that probably doesn't get made nearly enough.
No, because it's so boring.
You're right.
It's like but again, it's kind of ironic that it's Republicans and their kind of Democrat talking points. You know, they want to pay for tax reform. We don't need to pay for tax reform, right? Growing dynamic economy, more jobs, greater growth. That's going to pay for. That's the pay for tax cuts. And the fact of the matter is, I don't understand. Government shouldn't be picking winners and losers. And I don't think we should target a class of people because they are investors and tax their income twice. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
In fact, I hope to be one of these guys someday.
Yeah. Well, good. I hope that you are. I really do. Yesterday we had a protest here in St. Louis at our local congresswoman's office, and it was by unions, and they were mad about the Cadillac tax on health care. Well, I'm like, but Obamacare had one too, and it just hadn't been implemented yet. But they claim that Paul Ryan and these guys are cooking up something similar to help raise money moving forward.
Well, the fact is that they haven't seen anything Paul Ryan has proposed yet, number one. Number two, the Cadillac tax is already on the books. It's going to be implemented if Congress does nothing. And look, the best thing for unions, for working people, is to reform health care, replace it with something that's more market-centered. Look, I'm a dad of 5. I have 5 kids. I have a beautiful wife. And because I own my own shop, I'm in the individual market.
Right.
So my health care premium is $1,900 a month.
Jeez.
That's insane. I mean, it's like my mortgage payment. And also my deductible is $12,000.
Sure.
We have to stop this. It's hurting people.
Yeah, it's crazy. We've got to get it reformed somehow, and I appreciate you giving me some time. Jerry, tell me a little bit about the Institute for Liberty.
Sure, it's a boutique, small think tank. We engage in regulatory and tax issues, and the fact of the matter is, what we do is we advance the idea of American exceptionalism and constitutional government. People can
go to the website, the Institute for Liberty, and check them out because
that's right.
Institute for Liberty, instituteforliberty.org.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Hey, Jerry, enjoy yourself at CPAC. I'm jealous.
Hey, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it. You take care.
You bet. All right, Jerry Rogers there from the Institute for Liberty. Some food for thought there as you think about this and why what they're doing there at CPAC this week is so important because they're getting the Ted Cruzes of the world and the people at the White House, Reince Priebus and Steve Bannon and Kellyanne Conway, and I don't know if they're going to get I hear the president might speak there tomorrow. They're getting the attention of these folks. And for all of us who know that Donald Trump is not a conservative, it's good that he's being exposed to some of these folks like Jerry who are driving home some of these important tax issues that are near and dear to our heart.